Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. This show is obviously one of them. We also have a Facebook group, and we can be found at liveauthentically.today/FB. Here you can find a group of like-minded people committed to spiritual growth and transformation, and we would be delighted to have you join us. I'm also super pumped to say that I just launched my first book. It is called Soar, S-O-A-R, and it can be found on Amazon. It is available on audiobook, paperback, and Kindle. And it's a spiritual journey through a transformative event in my life and shows how I partnered with the universe and created my new reality. I am super pumped that on today's show, I have with me Sarah Flynn. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it. Sarah is a spiritual growth and transformation coach, and today she is going to tell us all about what she does. But before we jump into that, I would love to hear you answer the following question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What does it mean to you to live authentically every day?
Okay, wow. So to me, to live authentically every single day, I feel is to feel in that place of truth in your heart that you know that you are being the woman or the person that you know deep down that you are here to be. So I believe that we all have, a soul purpose for being here on this planet Earth. I believe there's no mistake as to why we are here. And I believe to live authentically is to live in alignment with that truth. And it might be that we have to spend some time doing the inner work to discover what that truth is. We definitely need to peel back some layers. And I do believe that it's ever evolving as well. And I believe that the work is continuous. So to live authentically, in answer to your question then, would be to be committed to doing that work, to be committed to doing that self-discovery so that you are continuously peeling back the layers and aligning more and more to your truth and the reason and purpose for being here.
I love that answer. Thank you. And that makes me curious. How did you come to this place? Have you always lived in this authentic space, or was there a time in your life where you felt like your beliefs, actions, thoughts, behaviors, etc., weren't in alignment, something wasn't feeling right, and you said, you know what, I think it's time to dig a little deeper?
For sure. For sure. Like definitely lived in a place of complete non-alignment. Definitely used to be the person who was being who everybody else desired me to be. Definitely was being the person who didn't understand my self-worth and so was therefore settling for less than, and was definitely the person who didn't have any faith or any connection to spirituality or source at all, and so lived a lot of my time in a fear-based reality and mindset. And as I'm sure you are aware, when you are making decisions for your life from a place of fear, you're definitely not creating your most aligned soul purpose driven life. And so very soon I found myself boxed in to this reality that wasn't true for me, living a life that wasn't true for me, being a person that wasn't even me, and surrounded by people who were just not in alignment to who I knew I was at my core. And so I guess you just reach a breaking point, don't you, where you're like, there has to be more to life than this. There just has to be. And the breaking point for me was really age. So I was 28 at the time. I was fast approaching 30. And I had always had these ideas that I was going to be in a certain place and I was going to be living a certain kind of life by the time I was 30. And so once I turned 28, I was like, oh, I am nowhere near where I thought I was going to be by the time I was 30. In fact, I'm wasting a lot of time with the wrong people, doing the wrong job, like completely living out of alignment. So something needs to change. And it's like that famous quote, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so in that moment, I guess I started to feel like, well, I have nothing to lose at this point. I'm open to there being another way, and I'm open to being shown another way. And so, of course, the universe started sending me signs and synchronicities and books to read and mentors to follow. And little by little, that path begins to open up.
Yeah, I love that. And I would love to hear you talk a little bit more about the signs and synchronicities, because that is just such an important part of the spiritual journey, just heightening your awareness and
Mm-hmm.
opening yourself up to conversations with the universe. Because the universe is attempting to reach each one of us every single day throughout the day via signs, synchronicities, songs, etc. And all we need to do is kind of open our mind and open our hearts and be willing to receive those signs and synchronicities. So I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit, what some of those early signs and synchronicities were for you. I know it's incredibly personal and individual to each person, but how can people begin the process of opening themselves up to receiving synchronicities?
Yeah, definitely so. So, like we all have free will, so we all have to make that decision that we are willing to see things differently, that we are willing to shift our perspective,
Mm-hmm.
not no longer look through the lens of fear, but begin to open our hearts to there being a much higher way, first and foremost, if we're going to allow ourselves to be open to receive the guidance of the universe. I think also tuning into understanding what that fear-based voice sounds like in your head versus what that little whisper of a soul nudge feels like. If you can differentiate those two, then you can begin to separate the two and understand what is your old fear-based programming versus what is this gentle, loving whisper and nudge that is guiding you down a different path, and how can you begin to follow the nudge and the whisper as opposed to the ego, which is typically very loud and fear-based. Those two things. And then for me, the synchronicities that started to open up was again like following those intuitive whispers. So I started to see on Instagram at the time this book, and it kept showing up in my feed. I felt as though everybody was reading it. I felt as though it just kept flashing up on social media everywhere. And the book was called Light is the New Black by Rebecca Campbell. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but I just had that feeling. I just had that inner whisper that when you need to read that book. Now, I had no idea like what that book was going to be about, just how impactful it would be in my life. I just felt inspired to buy it without even really fully understanding what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And in this time, by the way, like I'm still living in a very fear-based mindset. I was a person who was very scared of spirituality, actually. I was very scared of opening up to higher powers because it felt so unknown and so uncertain. And so for me to go and buy a spiritual book was like a big step in itself. But what that book actually did for me was it turned my fear into faith, because it allowed me to, I felt the love just out of the words in that book, let alone the practices that she began to teach through that book. Developing a spiritual practice, showing up for meditation every single day and making it a non-negotiable, beginning to believe in the power of prayer, beginning to believe in the power of a higher connection, and inviting that in to my world, which I'd never done prior to that. Prior to that, I was so guarded and feeling like it was up to me to make everything happen in my life. I had to be the one to control all of the moving parts. I had to live from a place of logic, and everything had to make logical, practical sense. And so opening up to firstly that book, and then secondly, making a spiritual practice, a daily spiritual practice, a non-negotiable. So that it was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all in and see what happens on the other side. I give myself 21 days. I'm just going to do this for 21 days and see what happens. And of course, everything shifted in those 21 days and continued to shift. But really, it was that going all in, opening myself up and inviting that love and energy of the universe in, which I'd never done before, and developing the confidence and the courage to allow things to not make logical sense. Because typically what I've definitely found on this path of following the universe's guidance, it might not make sense logically,
Right.
but it makes sense in your heart. It makes sense in the way that you feel fulfilled on the other side of whatever move you feel inspired to take. And just to put that into context, like my story is that I was actually a building surveyor. Like I used to work on construction sites. That was my logical choice. That was my choice of, let's go to university, let's get the degree, let's get the career job. So when my soul started calling me to go down a spiritual path and eventually leave that career, leave my relationship, leave this whole old life behind me, none of that made logical sense. But here I am now living a path that is more in alignment to my truth, my authenticity than the one that ever was before.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'd like to echo that. I mean, that's just so important to understand that we may not understand everything that's going on. It may not make sense to our logical, conscious minds, but there is a bigger picture. There is a grander plan. And the magic really happens when we surrender, right? When we surrender and say, universe, show me, right? Show me what's best for me. Show me the way. Help me step into my greatness. And when you open yourself up to that, to the benevolence of the universe, it's unlimited what we can accomplish. I mean, we become completely unleashed, untethered, open ourselves up to a completely new reality that just simply isn't achievable when we're holding ourselves in that fear-based place. So next, I would love to hear you talk a little bit more about what it feels like, what it sounds like, what is life like when we're living in that fear-based place? Because I know for myself, I didn't even realize, at an earlier point in my evolution, I couldn't even decipher between like fear-based and, and faith-based. I just didn't even realize I was living in that place. So what are some signs or some barometers that people can use to determine whether or not they are living in that fear-based place?
That's a really good question. So if I think back to the person who I used to be living in that fear-based reality, I would definitely say that one of the signs is that you don't take an action step if it doesn't make logical sense, because you're trying to make sure that all of the moving parts, make sense before you leap.
Yep.
That would definitely be one of the first ones. And you can instantly use money to find out if this is a way that you're living in that way. I always had this vision, I'm here to impact people in some way. I always had that like deep inner knowing, and I knew that building surveying was not the thing that was going to have me do that. So I always had this deep inner knowing that I'm going to start a business, I'm going to work online, I'm going to impact people in some way. I just didn't understand how back then. And I procrastinated for so long on this because of the fear, by saying, I don't have enough money to do it yet. I don't have enough this to take the next step. I don't have enough that. Like, this doesn't look good enough. I don't feel good enough. Like, whatever those thoughts are that were preventing me from taking the leap, whatever those thoughts were that were making me trying to be so logical about creating a business, I truly believed, in order for me to create this life that I desire, it's going to require a lot of money, and so I'm going to have to save up first before I can even take the first step. And in actual fact, like, the universe works completely different. It's like, take my hand, take the first step, and then we'll provide the resources for you to keep on going. So to check in as to whether you feel like you're in a fear-based mindset or not, are you telling yourself a story that you cannot do something, that which you desire to do, because of X, Y, or Z? Well, instantly that's fear showing up, because the truth is, like, a soul purpose is something that if you take action on, the universe is going to support you in that desire. If it's something that your heart desires as well, and you're leading from your heart and you're fulfilling your desires, the energy that ripples out from that place is always going to support you for more coming into your reality. So yeah, if you find yourself saying, I can't, if you find yourself surrounded by people who just constantly moan and complain, and maybe you're totally engaging in that moaning and complaining with them because you don't know any different, I would say that again is because you're too fearful to strip back, reveal who you truly are, and get yourself amongst people who give life and energy to your soul. And so instead, you're just dimming down and keeping yourself small. Maybe there is a part of you, I know for me, I was, as it's described in Rebecca's book, I was in the spiritual closet for a while. I was spiritual, but it was behind the scenes. I wasn't really sharing that with people because I was too scared of judgment, or people thinking I was silly, or, you know, what, or people not believing in it. And again, it was because I was around the wrong people, living stuck in a fear-based mindset, scared to be who I truly was. And so I think taking stock of the life that you're living, the work that you're doing in the world, does it light you up? Are you obsessed over it? Like, or is it just something that fills a gap for now? Are the people that you're spending time with, do they light you up, or do they actually take energy from you? And are you courageously following your heart's desires by any means necessary? Or are you telling yourself a story that you can't because you don't have enough time or you don't have enough money? All of those, I would say, are signs that you're just limiting yourself in that fear-based reality.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. I love your answer. So depth, so deep, and so much richness. Thank you. So where I'd like to go next is I'd like to talk a little bit about the realities of this whole spiritual transformation, right? It's not all butterflies and rainbows. I always tell my clients, you know, it's amazing, right, to make that shift from the ego to the soul, from fear into faith. But it's not all butterflies and rainbows. I say there will be growing pains along the way. You will be shedding, you know, your old identity and stepping into kind of your new one as you reconnect with who you are. There will be, you know, again, tears, just growing pains, etc. So what are some of those, you know, those challenges that people can expect along the way, and how can you help to allay some fears around that?
So this actually, yeah, you're so right. It's definitely not all butterflies and rainbows. And it's something in the beginning that I thought, yeah, you know, this spiritual growth is so exciting. You just get to shed your old life and start a new one. And then, yeah, there's those moments where you really do face like the depths of your soul. You're facing your fears. You really are transforming a version of yourself and growing into a new version. So something as well that people don't tend to talk about is the grief that you can feel with that, like the grief that you can feel with shedding an old version of yourself, shedding an old identity, leaving parts of you behind that have served you up until that point. But then as you elevate, you no longer need these coping mechanisms or protective mechanisms in place. And so when I'm working with my clients, I really just help them to process it all. You know, it's all completely necessary. And I think that's important that everybody knows that, that there is this law of contrast. There is this law of polarity in the universe. There is the darkness and the light. And if we try to bypass the messy parts, then we only bypass the gift and the rewards that is waiting for us on the other side. And if you are someone who is committed to your growth and committed to your elevation, you're going to begin to understand the cyclical nature of these awakenings, the cyclical nature of our growth. And you're going to, even though it can still be really tough to be in a messy, muddy, murky place sometimes, you're at least going to be able to face it with confidence in knowing this too shall pass. There is a method in this. There is a higher purpose in this. I know that I am experiencing this for a divine reason. I know that when I get to the other side and I have clarity, I'm going to see the gift in this. So really it is, I guess, just about understanding the cyclical nature, that it is totally necessary. Imagine if we were all love and light all of the time. I'm pretty sure that we would get super bored super fast and be like, okay, what else do we do now? And so it really is just about appreciating the contrast and knowing that the contrast is totally necessary, because it's the contrast that is allowing us to navigate through to a place that we've never been before. So yeah, embracing it all. It's definitely not all rainbows and butterflies, but it's all necessary. It is the journey. And when you do fearlessly go into these parts of you that maybe you've avoided looking at in the past, or fears that you've not wanted to face for a very long time. The universe, your guides, the higher power that is the creator of everything does see this, does reward you in limitless ways on the other side. So it's worth it. It's worth it
Right.
for the growth and for the reward.
Right. I absolutely agree. And, the universe does have surprises waiting for us, and it's just on the other side. But we just have to be the ones to take the first step. We have to be the ones to say, yes, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to step into faith. I'm ready to embrace my authenticity. And when we do that, the universe, like you said, it takes us by the hand, right? It takes us by the hand and ushers us to a place that we could have never, ever conceived with our conscious mind. So it really is such an amazing journey.
I think that's so important that you share that as well, that it's a place that we could never have conceived by our mind, because this really is, when if I reflect on my journey, and I also see this in my clients too, that like it always works out in ways greater than you ever could have imagined. And, God, universe, source has a plan for us that we don't see for ourselves. And so the journey really is about that. The journey really is about like getting out of our own way,
Right.
choosing to be of service, choosing to follow the nudges, and expect the miraculous, like expect to be supported in the most expansive of ways, and expect to be completely surprised and shocked, but in the most fulfilling of ways as well. To think, wow, I always say, this is not the path that I chose. This is the path that chose me, because I would never have guessed that this would be the path that would unfold for me, because my previous programming was so blocked by all of the different conditioning and programs that I had absorbed growing up. And so stripping all of that back, getting out of my own way and saying, this isn't actually about me. I just desire to be of service. Please use me. Please use me as a channel. Please use me as a vessel of divine love, of divine healing, of divine light. And then I say, I'm here to be of service to you. And then I just see what comes up, where I feel inspired to go, what I feel inspired to do or to say. And it's always bigger things than you ever would have possibly imagined in the first place.
Right. Well, congratulations to you on finding that and navigating your way to where you are. I mean, you are just absolutely radiating, just white light, divine light. And tell me a little bit about how you feel. I mean, I can tell kind of from the outside, but how does it feel to live in this place of divinity, of finding your purpose, of, playing a role in helping other people find their purpose? I mean, that's a really, really powerful position to be in. And I'd love to hear about how you feel in this place.
Yeah, exciting. So honestly, like for me, this is so normal to live in this space where like I do spend a lot of time like in my day-to-day life. I'm just constantly always trying to attune to that space of connection to spirit, or making everything like a ritual, or just feeling that connection and depth in everything that I do. And so because I live, I guess, in this reality a lot of the time, what's funny is when I speak to people who don't, it always amazes me just how much I have actually changed. Because you think, wow, this to me is like, I feel as though everybody lives in this place.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody does. And I'm not in it all of the time. Again, there's contrast, there's work to be done. But it does feel amazing to, have been courageous enough to take some of the leaps that I know that I have taken, to be courageous enough to get a flash of inspiration or a download or an inspired message or something that needs to be shared, and to just run with it and trust in it. To have even shifted into a type of faith where I feel really connected to a higher power, versus before I didn't have any higher power or source whatsoever. You really do feel their love and energy. You really do feel their love and support. And I'm feeling that now, actually, probably more than I ever have in the past few years on this journey. I mean, there's definitely a lot happening energetically on the planet, and things are shifting, and we're raising in vibration. So maybe that has something to do with it. But it definitely feels like I'm doing the work that I was born to do. I know with all of my heart, with every single fiber of my being, that that's what my soul chose to come here to do.
Yeah.
And it's so much bigger than a business. It's so much bigger than, you know, creating new clients and new programs. For me, it really is like, this is about waking up the planet to the potential of their inner power.
Yeah.
This is about guiding everybody back to the truth of who they are. This is about bringing everybody back home to the fulfillment that they could have in their hearts. And so just to be an embodiment of that, and to not necessarily like shout it out to people as such, but to be an embodiment of that energy, and to be able to show people there is another way. This is how it is, and let my energy be the representation of that. I couldn't ask for more.
Yeah, it's just so amazing. It's so amazing for me to sit here and listen to your journey and how you talk about what you do. And you're such an inspiration. And embodiment is the word that I thought of earlier in the podcast. You know, you're just, again, you embody that divine light, that energy, and there's a magnetism. And, you know, when people see you and see the work that you're doing in the world, there's just an immediate draw. I mean, even just your presence awakens people. And I would love to hear more about what you do on a daily basis. I know you coach clients and you do a number of different things to help to relate, or, you know, to raise collective consciousness, and would love to hear more about what you do.
Yes, firstly, thank you, Pamela. That's so lovely. And just,
You're welcome.
yeah, nice to even just receive that confirmation that there is that magnetism and that energy is felt. So thank you. And yeah, day to day, I work with one-to-one clients. I also have a group program that I run as well. So a couple of my days are really filled out with calls. And then I base the rest of my week on my own activation. I have definitely come to learn that unless I'm fully activated and fully embodied in my light and my energy, then I am of no use to anyone. And so you'll probably know yourself when you first go on the journey of entrepreneurship, you want to be all of the things to all people. You feel so guilty for taking time off. You know, you want to save the world.
Right.
So you wanna be in it all of the time. And I definitely learned burnout is not a good look, and that and that you actually cannot impact and have the impact that you desire if you are burnt out and overworked. So I place a lot of focus on my spiritual growth. I have a really strong, committed Kundalini practice, which is a yoga that I'm a huge fan of. Mm-hmm. It really helps to work on my vibration, create new pathways in my brain, and help me feel so connected through my breath to my body. That's something that's super important to me. And definitely just connecting with nature, going on daily walks, having my rituals, whether that involves journaling, sometimes dancing. Like, honestly, I used to be very disciplined around my rituals, and it all had to be a certain way. And recently that's kind of fallen into more of a feminine flow. And it's like, how do I feel right now in this moment? Mm-hmm. And how could I best serve myself in this moment? So that's a really powerful question that I use to tune in moment by moment by moment. How could I best serve myself in this moment? Well, it might be journaling. It might be a Kundalini class. It might be dance. It might be listen to a song.
Okay.
But then I get to the other side of that moment and I ask, okay, so now how can I best serve myself in this moment? Because I have that deep understanding now that as I serve myself, I serve others. It takes away that guilt or that need to overwork. When you understand that, like, your embodiment and your energetic work and your spiritual work is work in itself when you're doing that on your show. So typically my days are that, you know, at the moment, spending time with family, developing spiritually, and having amazing conversations with my clients. Going down to the beach for sunset, that's one of my faves as well.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Wow, well, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I would love to hear you tell us where people can get a hold of you if they would like to work with you directly.
Yes, sure. Amazing. So I do have my website, which is sarahjflynn.com. I'm also on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. You can just search my name on both of those. And I have a private Facebook group called the Soul Savvy Collective. And yeah, over there we are soul sisters on a mission to awaken and align to our most heart-centered, purposeful life. So yeah, you can find me on all of those things.
Wow, so beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with us today. The work that you're doing in this world is just incredible. And I commend you on what you're doing, all of your past accomplishments, all of your future accomplishments. I will look forward to staying in touch with you and watching your journey continue to unfold and take you to amazing places. So thank you very much for such a brilliant interview.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved every second of this, and for sure, let's see what unfolds for us both.
Right, exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Who knows? We don't know.
Right. We know that's the joy, right? We can just sit back and just become observers and see what the universe has in store for us next.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you again for having me. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And thank you so much to our viewers and listeners. I believe that time is a choice, and I am super grateful that you have carved time out of your day to be here and listen to Sarah's knowledge and wisdom that she has shared with us. Again, I would love to invite you to my Facebook group. We are at liveauthentically.today/FB. And also you can check out my book, SOAR, SOAR. It's on Amazon. And yeah, stay in touch. Reach out if you need anything. You guys know where to find me. And we'll chat soon. Thanks again and have a great day.